Halloween 2018 is the 11th entry into the Halloween franchise, directed by David Gordon Green, and it is the first Halloween movie that we have had in 9 years since Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 or H2, whatever it's called. These films just have weird titles. We now have 3 movies that are called Halloween, so I'll now have to differentiate this review by calling it Halloween 2018. It's confusing. So this film, of course, stars Jamie Lee Curtis returning as Laurie Strode for the first time since Halloween Resurrection in 2002, and of course this film also comes out on the 40th anniversary of the original Halloween. Now, there was a lot of excitement going into this movie because, of course, you know, it's the first Halloween movie we've had in such a long time. The Rob Zombie movies were fairly divisive with a lot of people. It was retconning all the sequels. It's a straight sequel to the original film. There was a lot of controversy going into it, and I was a little bit skeptical because I only saw this film a few days ago, and I wasn't too sure how to think going into it because of quite a few critics that I trust didn't like the movie all that much. But I gotta say, when I came out of the theatre for this film, I was incredibly impressed with this movie. This is easily the best sequel in the entire series, and although it does disappoint me in a few areas which I wish it could have been a little bit fine-tuned in, which I will get into in my negatives, I think overall this is a very good horror movie, and I think it's probably one of the best horror movies, especially like big budget franchise-wise, that I have seen in recent memory. First off, and I have to get the first positive out of the way, Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie is really, really good. Her performance as Laurie Strode just felt so real to me, and it really did feel like a proper continuation of what her character would be like after the events of that original Halloween movie. You know, how she becomes so secluded from everyone, and how she'd basically just be dedicating her whole life just waiting for Michael to escape so that she can kill him and actually sleep for once. And the way that Jamie Lee Curtis portrays Laurie Strode is fantastic, and the themes that they cover with her character with PTSD and estranged family, it's so well done, and I think this is probably the best performance that she has ever given in a film, in my opinion. And I also really like the supporting cast as well. You had Judy Greer in this movie as Laurie's daughter, who has basically had almost no kind of a relationship with her for pretty much the past 20 years. And you really feel that in their relationship, you know, they're very distant from one another. And then, of course, you've got, you know, Laurie Strode's granddaughter who, you know, really wants to have a relationship with her, but they simply can't because, of course, the daughter just won't allow for it. And it really makes for some very interesting family dynamics, you know, seeing them come at odds with one another. And it's so well done. All of the family members were just very good and very believable. I didn't find them irritating. They were all well presented and very well written. And that also extends to the other side characters that we get as well. You know, whether it be the characters that you kind of sit around thinking, oh, they're going to be killed, or characters that are quite important to the story. I think they're very well done in the film, and I think you really do get to know these characters. It's at least either whether it be through comedy or whether it be through a story that setup that they have, it all connects and it all services the story very well, which is something that I've always had a problem with the Halloween films, is that they basically just bring in these characters who have very few defining traits other than I'm going to be killed. Whereas at least in this movie, they try to give you something, even if they are characters that are essentially going to serve that purpose. I also thought the directing here was pretty spot on for me personally, and there are a lot of sequences here that really reminded me of that original film, or just of any John Carpenter horror film. You know, there's a few shots in this movie where it's literally just one continuous tracking shot of Michael just going through buildings, and it's so well done. You really feel that sense that you're getting kind of not a full glimpse, but just a small idea of what it's like to get in the mindset of him. You know, you see him walk into a house, kill someone off screen, and then he just walks to another house and kills someone, and you see the whole thing. And it's those kind of things where the film is showing restraint, but also not at the same time. It really added this sense of unpredictability with what the film was going to do or what it wasn't going to do, and it really keeps you on edge throughout this movie, and that's the one thing I really liked about it. It always kept you tense. You didn't really know what was going to happen, in the good sense of the word, not as in like it's that bad that you don't know what's going to happen. It does it in a good way. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, because this isn't a movie that I would classify as like ultra scary, but it's a film that you certainly feel unnerved by while watching, and I think that's really what this film needed to aim for, because that's what the original film ultimately did. I also think the portrayal of Michael here is fantastic, because by removing the brother and sister element from Halloween 2, you essentially get back to the core of what Michael Myers is, which is this mystical killer who has no motive, no agenda. He's just a force of evil who really is just lacking any sense of humanity, and you question what his intentions are or what kind of a being he is. And that's the kind of Michael Myers that I like, and I was quite intimidated by him in this film. And that's weird, because one of the few positives I have with the Rob Zombie Halloween films is that, at least because Tyler Mane, the actor who played Michael in those films, was like 6'8", he was already intimidating himself. But here they do it in a different way. They do it in the way of how Michael acts, the way he thinks, the way he's able to stalk, his victims. It really makes you scared of Michael, which is something that I haven't felt properly since the original film, for me personally. So that was a really nice change of direction for Michael Myers as a character. And I also thought some of the kills here, like I mentioned earlier, were very good, in the fact that, like I said, you didn't really know what they were going to show, what they weren't going to show. And there is a high body count in this film. Like, I thought it would be quite low, because the original film has quite a low body count, but this is massive. There was a lot of deaths in this movie, way more than I thought there were going to be. And I thought they were all very well done. There weren't deaths that felt overly gratuitous, because trust me, there have been some kills in this franchise that have just been ridiculously over the top. So this actually had quite a bit of restraint to it, but I think it was very well done. And like I said, it was very engaging, and it kept you tense throughout the entire way through. And I also have to mention the score by John Carpenter. I loved the score for this film. He collaborated with his son and somebody else who I can't remember the name of off the top of my head, but the score they do for Halloween 2018 is so good. It does, of course, incorporate some songs from the original film, but it kind of updates them to fit more in tone with the rest of the songs in the film, as well as the actual film itself. And I thought it was very well done. And some of the new tracks they have are just brilliant. They're a great listen, by yourself, and they also work really well with what's happening on screen in the movie. It really does add to that sense of tension, and it was so well done. And it's just nice to see John Carpenter have proper involvement with a Halloween sequel, because the last time he really had anything to do with a Halloween film was Halloween 3. So it's nice to see him get back into the series and, start to have a bit more of an involvement with the film. And lastly, I actually thought a lot of the comedy in this movie worked. I know the comedy's probably been the most divisive element of the film, but for me, a lot of the time it really worked, and I really did enjoy it. There's one kid in particular who, honestly, whenever he came up with a joke, it was just gold. He was so funny in this movie. And I kind of hope that this film actually kind of kickstarts his, career, because he was so funny in this film. He had great comedic timing, and he was just so good in the film. And I thought the comedy, like I said, for the most part, was pretty funny, and I laughed quite a bit through this movie. And it's just weird to have a Halloween movie that's genuinely funny, but not in the sense of it's so bad it's good like you have with some of the films. It was a genuinely funny movie, and that, again, kind of took me by surprise, but I also really enjoyed that about the film, because, it's weird to have these moments of levity in the film where people just get murdered every left, right, and centre, but it worked for what film it was, and it really did make me laugh quite a lot of times throughout the film. Now, even with that being said, there is a few problems that I have with the film, because whilst I think the comedy for the most part does work, there are a few times in this film where I feel like the comedy is very misplaced. There's one scene in particular where, and this is mild spoilers for the film, but I'm not going to name the character that this happens to, so if you don't want to be spoiled, click off the video now. But there's a character who dies in this movie. During her death scene, it is intercut with another character who is spitting out jokes. And while this has the ability to be funny in kind of a dark comedy way, it just didn't work for what they were trying to go for. And there are quite a few moments like that in this film where something quite serious and dark is happening, and you've got this comedy going on at the same time with another character. And whilst, like I said, I can understand why they're doing it, because maybe they're trying to create this dark comedy sense, for me, it just didn't work with what else was happening on screen. And there are a few moments in this movie where it's like that, and I didn't find it funny, and I found it very tonally conflicting, and it left me a little bit frustrated, because the tension that they could have built up with that scene is immediately cut with a joke, and it does annoy me in that sense, because if you think you just take out those scenes or place them somewhere else in the film, I think it would have worked a lot better. I also think this movie is a little bit too over-reliant on jump scares in the first half of the film, and jump scares are a massive pet peeve for me in horror movies. If a film is completely reliant on jump scares to get the audience tense, then it doesn't work for me personally, and I just thought there were a little too many in the first half of the film. Now granted, second half of the movie, there's barely any, and the most of the scares in the movie come from tension, which is what I want. I just wish that was more the case with the first half of this film, because when you're having jump scares left, right, and centre, they just don't become scary anymore, because you're just there expecting it. So that was an annoyance to the first half of the film, but it didn't completely derail the scares for me. It was just more of a nuisance that I just wished they didn't have as many as they did during that first half of the film. But other than those two things, I really enjoyed my time with Halloween 2018. Like I said, I think this is easily the best Halloween sequel in the entire series, without a shadow of a doubt. You've got great performances by all of the cast members, you've got really good scares in this film and great tension building, great direction, a fantastic score by John Carpenter. I think this is a very worthy sequel to that original film, and for me this joins the slot of the 3 watchable Halloween movies in my honest opinion, and they are the first one, Halloween 2, and Halloween H2O. I think it joins that for me as a watchable Halloween movie, and I would even argue it is the best sequel since that original 1978 film. So with that being said, I'm going to give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. Like I said, I can't quite give it a 9 because I do have some issues with the film, but I think considering how long it has been since we last had a decent Halloween movie, in my opinion, which was 20 years ago, it's so nice to have a film like this where it just takes it seriously, it takes it back to the basics and creates a genuinely tense film. And that is what I've wanted since that original 1978 film. So thank you very much for watching my review on Halloween 2018. Let me know in the comment section down below if you have seen this movie and what you thought of it. Let me know all about that. I want to thank you very much for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll hope to see you again next time.